Okay, so we're getting into Hebrews 11 as we've been doing in the context of the book of Hebrews. I actually was just struck the other day. I honestly had not really realized how long we've been studying Hebrews. It's been like since April, but been in the Hall of Faith for a long time, looking at all of these characters right here, including Barak that we studied last time. Now, you would think we would do Samson next, but we're not. We're going to skip him for the time being and go to Jephthah. In Hebrews, the spelling is Thae. In the Old Testament, where his story is told, it's Thah, either one. That happens a lot, where in the New Testament, the writing is done in Greek, and in the Old Testament, it's done in Hebrew or Aramaic. And so the spellings come out different. Just that happens in our modern languages. Sometimes a name in one language is a little different in another. Sometimes a name is a lot different from one language to another, such as the name James. In Spanish, it's Santiago. And also, you sometimes come across someone who's simply named Tiago. That doesn't seem like it has anything to do with the word James. And just a little nugget for you that you may or may not know, not relevant to what we're doing today, but the name James in the New Testament is actually the equivalent of the name Jacob in the Old Testament. So I don't know if you've ever stopped to wonder why is no one in the New Testament named Jacob? It seems like it would be a common name. Well, it actually was, but it's written in the New Testament as James. So this is a much closer rendition here, these spellings of the name Jephthah. But where this fits in the timeline, Jephthah was in the time of the judges. Um, and we know these are all the characters that are mentioned in Hebrews 11, just sort of spanning a snapshot history of the entire Old Testament in this Hebrews chapter 11. So we'll take a look what it says in Hebrews 11. What shall I more say? For the time would fail me to tell of Gideon and of Barak and of Samson and of Jephthah, of David also and Samuel and of the prophets who through faith subdued kingdoms, wrought righteousness, obtained promises, stopped the mouths of lions, quenched the violence of fire, escaped the edge of the sword, out of weakness were made strong, waxed valiant in fight, turned to flight the armies of the aliens. And we've looked at how Gideon and Barak both did those things. Oh, I just realized I've got Samson underlined there instead of Jephthah. Oh, well. Uh, so Jephthah's story happens in Judges chapter 11. And then there's another briefer story with him in 12. We're going to look at one in chapter 11. And I want us to get the geographical context for where this story takes place. So, this is the map of the area surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. And this is a modern day map. And we see the country of Israel. So, we're going to zoom in on that little box right there, which contains Israel. And again, this is a modern day map. And so, these dashed line areas are contested areas uh, of Gaza, the West Bank, and Golan Heights. And these are the areas that are in the news very, very prominently right now in our day and age. Also, just to the east of the nation of Israel, we have the country called Jordan in our modern day age. Why would it be called Jordan? Because of the Jordan River is the boundary. So it sort of, um, uh, there's a word that's not coming to my mind, but whatever. If you start from the Jordan River and go out to the east, there's the country of Jordan. It's actually a really large country in the context of those countries over there. It's a really big country of Jordan. Now we're going to overlay a map from the era of the judges, which 1000 BC or earlier, 1500 BC. And so this is 3,000 plus years ago. 3,000 plus years ago. And that Gaza Strip, 3,000 years ago, was Philistia, inhabited by the Philistines, like Goliath of the city of Gath. And there were all these prominent cities there, Gaza and Ashkelon and Ashdod. That region is now contested just like it was contested all through the era of the judges and of the kings. Obviously, famous conflicts with King David between Judea, and Philistia, or now the Gaza Strip. Then over here, let's notice the Jordan, modern day Jordan, this region over here. Now that box is just to draw some attention. The country of Jordan is larger than that, but just to kind of give us some focus. And we notice that the area that now is the country of Jordan, 3,000 years ago, part of that area was inhabited by Reuben, Gad, the half tribe of Manasseh. I'm using the way the Bible phrases it a lot. The tribe of Reuben, Gad, and the half tribe of Manasseh. Where they lived is now the modern day country of Jordan. But also the kingdoms of Ammon and Moab and Edom are also over there in what is now the country of Jordan. Edom was a variation of the name of Esau, Jacob and Esau. So the country of Edom, the kingdom nation of Edom, were the descendants of Israel's brother. Ammon and Moab were the sons of Lot, who was Abraham's nephew that Abraham raised like a son for part of his life. So all three of these kingdoms that bordered the Israelite nation back in 3,000 years ago were close relatives of the Israelites going back to their forefather Abraham. They all come from Abraham. Now, I'll also mention south of Edom would be the Midianites, who were also descendants of Abraham, including the Ishmaelites. Midian and Ishmael were half brothers, but at some point the Ishmaelites seem to have kind of merged with the Midianites and become one people. So, you may hear talk sometimes of the fact that the Arabic people, the largest population of the Muslim religion, that they trace their heritage back to Ishmael, back to Abraham through Ishmael, where the Israelites obviously track their heritage back to Abraham through Jacob, who is renamed Israel. So Israelites and Ishmaelites, and the Ishmaelites, just to give you a reveal here for when you read Bible stories, the Ishmaelites in Old Testament, you won't come across Ishmaelites much at all. Very rare mentions, but it's interchangeable with Midianites. So when you read about Midian and the Midianites in the Old Testament, those are the peoples, the Ishmaelites, and the region of Midian is the region where Muhammad lived when he founded the Muslim religion. So just fascinating things to trace back to. And notice that the kingdom of Ammon is right there. And I'm going to get rid of this big word Jordan so that we can notice this city, Rabbath Ammon. Now, my pronunciations, I'm using pronunciations that I've just typically heard most of my life. Ammon, it's probably not the right way to pronounce that Semitically, but Rabbath Ammon, that city where that star is, that's mentioned in the Bible multiple times, the city of Rabbath, that is the location of the modern day Amman, the capital of the country of Jordan. And if you look it up, you will find that the name Amman for the capital of the city of Jordan is absolutely because of the children of Ammon. The names are connected. It's just the morphing and the language variations. Amman, Jordan is named that because it is the capital of the ancient kingdom of Ammon, the son of Lot, the nephew of Abraham. You know, every now and then you'll find people who think that the Bible is equivalent to fairy tales. That's crazy. The history of the Bible is so concrete and concretely tied to the facts that we know in our modern day. The Bible contains more reliable history than of ancient times than any other resource on earth. And anyway, the Bible cannot be dismissed as fables and fairy tales. We're talking about things that were written thousands of years ago, and the history is the same as we see around us today. Okay, so we're going to zero in on this for our story today. Here's Rabbath Ammon, the capital, and the name Rabbath, the name of that city, just basically means great city, capital city. It just means it's the capital of that kingdom of Ammon. All right, so here we have Ramoth Gilead. Gilead is sort of a region, and it's kind of not specifically a part of any tribe. It's kind of bigger than that Manasseh and Gad borderline. It's a region that is all of that Manasseh, Gad, and stuff like that. Ramoth is basically equivalent almost to the word Rabbath, and it's just the capital of the Gilead region, but it's not really a political capital. It's just saying this is kind of a central key city for the entire Gilead region. All right, and so we're going to go to Judges chapter 11, where we're introduced to Jephthah. Now, Jephthah the Gileadite, so a guy from the region of Gilead, was a mighty man of valor, and he was the son of an harlot. And Gilead begat Jephthah. Now, this man, Gilead, was Jephthah's father. The region is not named for him. There was a forefather named Gilead, but it's not uncommon to pass down names. And so his parents gave him the name of their forefather, Gilead, but it's just an extra strong tie. And this family, as we see in the rest of the story, was a prominent family in this region of the Gileadites. And this guy's name was Gilead. And Gilead begat Jephthah. And Gilead's wife bare him sons. Now, that's wife as opposed to a harlot that he had a son with. Now, what we don't know here in terms of backstory is whether he was married at the time that he impregnated a harlot. My speculation is no, that he already had this son, and we don't know what happened to the harlot, Jephthah's mother. There's no more mention of her at all, but somehow or another, she seems to be out of the picture. And so I would speculate that Jephthah is Gilead's oldest son, born out of wedlock. And then Gilead gets married and he has a wife, and she bears sons to him as well. So now we'll keep reading. And his wife's sons grew up, and they thrust out Jephthah and said unto him, Thou shalt not inherit in our father's house, for thou art the son of a strange woman. Then Jephthah fled from his brethren and dwelt in the land of Tob, And there were gathered vain men to Jephthah and went out with him. So verse 1 describes Jephthah as a mighty man of valor. So when he gets kicked out, he runs to this region called the land of Tob and becomes a leader of a bunch of vain men. So, I mean, this sounds basically, it's going to be kind of equivalent to an outlaw warlord type of a thing. Um, it's actually not completely unlike what happened when David had to flee and lived out in the wilderness, and people were gathered to him. The people that gathered to David were people who owed money or had problems where they were, and then they became David's band and little mini tribe almost out in the wilderness. So similar thing happened with Jephthah here, where he's got a bunch of guys, and it seems this is a bunch of rough guys that are going to go where they want to go and do what they want to do. Um, so this land of Tob, by the way, I've kind of like placed an indicator. I wasn't able to find like really super concrete indication of exactly what where that is and where what is and isn't. It seems to be just sort of a vague um, region or area that was maybe partly in and partly out of the land of Manasseh. Now, also, let me just mention about these various borders and stuff, like especially like this eastern border of Manasseh. These borders are going to change from decade to decade, generation to generation, as lands are contested and uh, people kind of take over and lose and win. So these borders change, and we always have to, when you look at maps from the ancient times, take it all with a little grain of salt, that these are always approximations. First of all, because the records are not all that concrete. And second of all, because things change over time. Even rivers change over time. Uh, okay, so Jephthah ran out to the land of Tob, grew this band of rough guys, and we'll rejoin the story here. Verse 4, and it came to pass in the process of time that the children of Ammon made war against Israel. And it was so that when the children of Ammon made war against Israel, the elders of Gilead went to fetch Jephthah out of the land of Tob. And they said unto Jephthah, come and be our captain, that we may fight with the children of Ammon. And then skipping down to verse 11, Jephthah went with the elders of Gilead, and the people made him head and captain over them. And Jephthah uttered all his words before the Lord in Mizpeh. So this is approximately where the city of Mizpeh is. Um, okay. And Jephthah sent messengers unto the king of the children of Ammon, saying, what hast thou to do with me, that thou art come against me to fight in my land? And the king of the children of Ammon answered unto the messengers of Jephthah, because Israel took away my land when they came up out of Egypt, from Arnon even unto Jabbok and unto Jordan. Now therefore restore those lands again peaceably. So Arnon, Jabbok, and Jordan, where is that? What is he complaining about? Well, that's the Jabbok River. That's the Arnon River. And that's the Jordan River. So pretty much that whole half tribe of Manasseh region, the king of Ammon is claiming they have claim to that. That's their land. He's saying that the Israelites took it away from him and his people whenever they were coming from Egypt to the promised land. And it pretty intriguing to notice that today Today, all of that land right there is part of the country of Jordan. So as of today, the king of Ammon has gotten what he was after in his conversation with Jephthah. Of course, he's been long dead, but the modern day people there have that land now. Um, okay. Sorry, hold on. What did I do here? Okay, I'm sorry. I've got myself confused about where I am, but that's all right. So he says, restore those lands again peaceably. And Jephthah sent messengers again unto the king of the children of Ammon, and said unto him, Thus saith Jephthah, Israel took not away the land of Moab, nor the land of the children of Ammon. So he's associating Moab because Moab and Ammon were brothers. They did separate and become their own independent nations, but closely related. And there's going to be some alliance there and support of one another. And he said, no, we didn't do that. We didn't take your land. We didn't take Moab's land. We didn't take your land. And so what he goes on to say, which we're not going to just read all of it, he goes on to say that when we came, we asked permission of the Midianites and the Moabites because they're our relatives. So we didn't just come through and when they denied us permission, which we felt they should not have done, they should have let us pass through because we just were going to pass through. That's all. They would not allow us to do that. So we went all the way around, made our trip longer and harder, and we did not fight with them. We went all the way around. But then we came to the area you're talking about, and you weren't there. The Amorites were there. And it was same thing, though. We asked permission. And the king of the Amorites, whose name was Sihon, said no. And so then we did have a fight because that's not even our relatives. And the Lord delivered this land to us by subduing the Amorites before us. So that's what he talks about here. Now, I'm going to speculate a little bit here on what must have happened is the Ammonites, now they're coming after the fact saying, well, that's our land. You took it from us. But he's saying, no, we didn't fight y'all and take it. We fought the Amorites and took it. And so the Amorites must have taken it from the Ammonites at some point, or I'm just guessing. And that's why the Ammonites are trying to lay claim and they're trying to distort the history at that time, that moment. And so he's saying, no, too late. The Lord gave it to us, and we're not just going to now just give it away. And he says, they, the children of Israel, those that were following Moses, possessed all the coasts of the Amorites from Arnon even unto Jabbok, and from the wilderness even unto Jordan. That was Amorite land. It was not Ammonite land, and we took it. So now the Lord God of Israel hath dispossessed the Amorites from before his people Israel. And should you possess it? The Lord pushed them out for us. We're supposed to just give it to you. Wilt not thou possess that which Chemosh thy God giveth thee to possess? So he's kind of throwing in here, hey, you guys are descendants of Abraham also, but you don't even serve the Lord God of Abraham. You've gone some other direction. You've got some other God and some other religion. So whatever he's given you, y'all have that. The Lord has given this to us. So y'all just stay over there and inhabit what Chemosh has given you. So whomsoever the Lord our God shall drive out from before us, them will we possess. Wherefore Jephthah, have not sinned against thee, Ammonites, but thou doest me wrong to war against me. The Lord the judge, be judge this day between the children of Israel and the children of Ammon. Howbeit the king of the children of Ammon hearkened not unto the words of Jephthah which he sent him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came upon Jephthah, and he passed over Gilead and Manasseh and passed over Mizpeh of Gilead. And from Mizpeh of Gilead, he passed over unto the children of Ammon. The passing over seems to be indicating going across that river Arnon. So Jephthah passed over unto the children of Ammon to fight against them, and the Lord delivered them into his hands. Now, if we were to read this whole chapter and read into chapter 12, you're going to read some things that are really head scratchers about Jephthah and about what goes on in this story. And he promises to give whatever he sees, and it turns out to be his daughter, and he sacrifices his daughter, and he seems like he's just a guy that you can't get along with, and all kind of crazy stuff. But the writer of the book of Hebrews doesn't go into all that. He just mentions him as among those who did some things by faith and subdued kingdoms by faith and put to flight armies of the aliens by faith. And we know that Jephthah's origin story the is not a spotless origin story, and we even see things he did in his life that are questionable at best. Uh, and so I just want to say that regardless of any of that, when the Spirit of the Lord came on him, he fulfilled the will of the Lord through faith. And the Bible tells us that I can do all things through Christ, which strengtheneth me. And Zechariah the prophet said that if I'm going to do something, if I'm going to accomplish something, I need to remember that it is not by might nor by power, but it is by the Spirit of the Lord. Whatever my problems are, whatever Jephthah's problems were, we need the Spirit of the Lord to come upon us. And the Lord will accomplish his will, which will work to our blessing. So it's so important to seek the Lord on a daily basis, prayer life, Bible reading, but not just ritual only, but seeking after the Spirit of the Lord to come upon us, because the Spirit of the Lord supersedes and overcomes every one of our faults, shortcomings, bad decisions, weaknesses. The Spirit of the Lord, the touch of God's Spirit, makes everything right. And Jephthah ends up in the hall of faith in Hebrews chapter 11.